Greetings and good evening, traders. Zach here with the Trading Network. Hope everybody is doing well. I know it's been a little bit since I've made a video, but I want to let you guys know that I will very shortly be getting into a much more rigorous video posting, recording, and content creation schedule. So stay tuned for that and more details on that coming soon. With that said, today is Thursday, May 27th, and as usual, I have another daily market profile recap for everybody for both the ES and the NQ futures markets. So we will dive right in here, first and foremost, starting with the ES market profile and trade plan. All right, so getting into the key levels for ES here, we are starting with the prior range high at 41.99. You can see this was my first area of interest. And the second key level was the prior POC, 41.92. Third level was prior value area low. Fourth level was the prior range low. And last but not least, I was looking at the overnight low at 41.77. Now you can see all of these levels in my trade plan for ES were bunched together quite a bit because we've had such tight price action, really comparatively to what we are used to. So you can see here, today we had a 15.75 point range. Yesterday we had an 18.5 point range. Day before that, 30, and the day before that, 32 points. So it's been fairly tight. We have been in a pretty condensed range, and when we have tight price action, when price is coiling up, when volatility is low, however you want to view it, well, we are going to see a lot closer targets because we are not expecting, or we haven't seen as much expansion. So with that said, we will go over and check out the key levels I was interested in for NQ. And just as a side note here, you can see the same thing, that NQ is indeed operating within a pretty clear range. Call it 13.6 up to 13.740, 13.738 to be precise. This is the overnight high from the May 24th into May 25th overnight session. And aside from that, we will get into the key levels. So first and foremost, just like ES, I was looking at prior range high, 13.724. The level below that was the overnight high, 13.717. Third level was the overnight point of control down here at 13.667. Fourth level was the prior range low down at 13.656. And I just noticed that I had a little typo there on the trade plan. This previously said PPOC, which was prior point of control, and 13.620 was actually the overnight low. So that was my last area of interest there. So moving on from the key levels, we will get into my pre-market analysis, starting with the overnight inventory. So I will go ahead and go back to ES. I will flip my levels back on, and we will dig in. So overnight inventory was short on ES and NQ for the first time all week. At the time of writing, which was about a half hour before open, we were looking to open inside range and value on both ES and NQ. This means that the profile is showing that there has been little to no change in sentiment since the last regular trading hour session. So with that said, you can see if we look at the profile here that we actually opened above range and value. So we opened about 5 points above yesterday's high. So not significant gap up, but when I wrote this, we were still operating within range, and before open, we got that nice push up, and we did end up opening right around this area, just a bit under the overnight high by about 2 points. So things change. You know, it doesn't happen too often. Typically, when I sit down and write my trade plan, the structure, you know, is similar to when I write it. And to be fair, like I said, we didn't really have too big of a move. So, you know, in range and value was 96, and we only needed to move basically 4 points or 3 points to get outside of range and value. So we did get that move. We opened outside of range and value, and even though we opened outside of range and value, we actually still ranged for the majority of the day. And I think that was very likely because we have been bracketing. So even though we opened outside, we still were opening within the range of this week, right? So you consider ES's range, you know, 41.75 up to 42.12, 42.15, 42.10, you know, somewhere in that area. So generally speaking, we couldn't really see any directional conviction developed overall, and we have a holiday coming up on Monday, so typically volume tapers off, trading interest tapers off into the holiday weekends, and that is what we are seeing here. So getting into the rest of my analysis here, I was looking at the prior range low on NQ at 13,656 and the prior POC on ES at 41.92 as the line in the sand levels. So this was the line in the sand level that I was looking at on ES. So we actually did not even move down and touch that naked POC. You can still see that that point of control is indeed naked, which means that it has not been touched in a regular trading hour session, which is why it is all the way extended to the end of the chart there. So you can see that this on NQ 13,656. Let me go ahead and mark that off. That was yesterday's low. That was the line in the sand on NQ that I was interested in. And my thought was if we could hold above that level, then we were very likely to at least maintain relative value, and we were not likely to see value move down significantly, which is indeed what happened. So I was looking for buying pressure if we could hold those levels. And for the most part, we did hold above those levels and we did range back and forth, but buyers held above the point of control from the 25th. We for the most part held above the low from yesterday, the 26th. And we also held for a good chunk of the session above the value area low from the overnight as well as the overnight point of control. So you can see that I was saying that I was going to look for buying pressure to continue up to the weekly highs mentioned in several trade plans this week from the 5-10 weekly session at 42.31, and that also matched up with these levels up here from the May 3rd weekly session on NQ at 13.947. So with that said, we don't have a lot of volume towards the end of this week comparatively to what we're used to. So I would say it's less likely that we do get continuation up into this level by the end of this week. So with that said, we do have this naked POC from the weekly chart on NQ from the week of April 26th, lurking at 13.953. So if we do move and hold above this level, I'm looking at a move above 780, 13.818, and then into this 13.950-ish level. So on the downside, my thought was if we could not hold the POC, that we were looking to move into the lows from earlier in this week. And we, once again, did not touch that POC on ES. And on NQ, we did not move and hold above the prior range low for very long at all. So that shows us that buyers were interested when we came down in this area. And we did indeed actually close this naked point of control from the 25th on NQ. So that is something to be noted as well. So just to reiterate, upon open, I was looking to see if we could get acceptance above 41.92 on ES and 13.656 on NQ. If we could hold those levels, I was looking for upwards directional conviction to develop towards prior weekly highs. If we did not move and hold above those levels on open, I would look for a move down through yesterday's value area on both instruments into the prior lows, which we did not get. We did get a move into yesterday's low, just to reiterate here on NQ, but we got picked up fairly quickly and we could not get acceptance below yesterday's low. And just flipping back to ES real quick, you can see we didn't get anywhere near yesterday's low. We could not even violate the point of control. So with all of this said, before we get into the targets here, today's price action was pretty torturous. This ranging price action will A, test your patience significantly. It will B, test your entry precision significantly and your risk management skills. If you take on a day like today and you try to be a gunslinger and you take cavalier entries where your entries are far away from your stop losses, so you're having to widen your stops and you're having to sit through a bunch of choppy drawdown, it's really uncomfortable. And I would deeply suggest, if you guys have NinjaTrader especially, to go back in the playback, download some data, and practice range trading, because this is where most people give their money back. The interesting thing about that is that price is ranging 70 to 80% of the time, and it's trending 20 to 30% of the time, right? So it's very important as a well-rounded trader that you understand the range and you know how to trade the range, because you will get destroyed if you try to A, take trending trades or trade a breakout when price is chopping around, or you don't know how to establish a range well enough to where you can determine, okay, I need to wait till price comes down to the bottom of the range to go long, wait for divergence preferably, perhaps, or wait till price goes to the top of the range to go short with something like bearish divergence. So I just wanted to make a note to say that, because in our group we talk about price action as it's playing out, as things are occurring. People talk about their feelings, what they're seeing, if they're getting, chopped up, if they're having success. And a running theme with not just people in the group, a running theme with traders in general is that they make their money in the trend and they give it back in the range. So make sure you guys are keeping that in mind and practicing to ensure that you're a well-rounded trader. So again, just wanted to make a point to say that, and now we can go ahead and dig into the targets here. So starting with ES, first and foremost, once again, line in the sand level, 41.92. You see that guy right here. And my thought was, if we were going to move and hold above 41.92, then we were going to very quickly move into yesterday's profile targets and profile levels. So first and foremost, just 2.5 points above that. First target was 41.9450. Second target was 41.99, yesterday's high. So that was hit. Actually, neither of these, to be fair, were hit in the initial balance. If we zoom in here to the profile, you can see that these were not hit until after the initial balance being the first hour of the New York session, which is notated by the green TPOs right here. So if you wanted to hit those downside targets, you were actually going to have to be quite patient. And it's interesting because you guys will notice that these are upside targets to begin with, but because we opened up here, these two levels ended up being downside targets. So when you open above the highs of the previous session, you possibly reject from the overnight high or previous highs. You can see that this was acting as resistance today, as well as this. So you can see that we didn't get much acceptance above here, and most of our business was done within this area between 41.97 and 42.06. So on the flip side, you can use these targets, whether they're upside or downside levels to begin with. You can use these levels as targets regardless of the direction. So what I mean by that is, let's say you see price open up right here, 42.04, right around the overnight high from the 25th into the 26th session. You see price move up, reject the previous regular trading hours high from the 25th at 42.10. And not only that, you see price break back below the overnight high at 42.06. So when you see that type of price action, well, you can say that sellers are not interested in allowing price to move above the highs, and buyers are not interested in purchasing the instrument at these levels. That means that they view it as too expensive and they're not interested, right? So when you put all those pieces of the puzzle together, you could say, well, I'm very likely to be able to take a short on the break of 42.0675 down to 42.0425, down to 41.99, and through our previously upside targets now to the downside, right? These aren't just upside targets, they're valid and relevant levels from prior sessions. So treat them as such. Don't treat them as black and white upside targets or downside targets. Just make sure that you are, giving them the credit they deserve, if you will, in, allowing yourself to take trade opportunity from them regardless of direction. So as we said, today's profile was a little strange. So we opened up actually right around our third upside target. So we opened up right around 42.04. We moved into our fourth upside target, which was 42.07, and that was in B period. So that was actually the first 30 minutes of the session. And we did not get to our final upside target at 42.12. So it was a very, very tight ranging day. Again, you can see the range down here, 15.75 points, which means, again, we have to be very surgical, we have to be very picky, and we have to be very precise with the trades that we decide to take. So we will move into the downside targets, which you guys can see, none of them got hit. So it's going to be short and sweet as far as the targets. I kind of just wanted to, give you guys a little bit more of my thoughts in regards to how to treat a day like this, because it can be very frustrating. We can be looking for a big move. We can be looking for, 3, 4, 5 point targets, but you have to treat the market with the information, we're getting. So if the market is not volatile, if the ATR is low, then we need to make sure that we are treating it as such, going for smaller targets and shortening our stop loss in a lot of instances. And you guys would notice if you had to widen your stop loss today, then that means that your entries were very likely not precise. So go back and look at your trades today if you struggled and figure out why that was. There is something to be learned in every tough trading day. just once again, no downside targets hit on ES, so we'll move right on into NQ. Super tight range for NQ. We had a 76-point range today on NQ as well. Yesterday we had a 68.75 point range, so very, very tight. These are some of the smallest ranges I've seen on NQ in quite a while, and that's saying something. When price coils up, it is building up momentum, right? And when price compacts, it can only be compact for so long before it expands. And of course, when price is expanded, it can only be stretched out for so long, if you will, before it reverts to the mean. So getting into NQ, you can see the line in the sand, 13,656. That was yesterday's low right there. I will highlight that in a couple different ways here. And my thought process was if we can move and hold above that, then we were likely going to see upside pressure sustain at the very least. So we opened right in this area at 13,685. We moved down, probed the lows in B period, and we did not get up here above the POC until D period. So a little weird here, just like ES, we opened above our first two upside targets. So we actually hit our first two upside targets to the downside. So keep in mind that, again, these are relevant levels. They're not black and white upside or downside targets, because when the trade plans are created, things can change in the market. Like I said earlier, it's pretty rare that price structure changes significantly or our open type changes significantly between the time that I write the trade plan and when we open. But today's a good example, and a really good example of how you have to take this information in stride, not freak out and say, okay, well, we're doing something a little bit different. How am I going to use this information to my advantage to pull money out of the market today? So you can see that we opened up here around 13,685. We swiftly moved down into our first upside target, which ended up being a downside level of interest, 13,682, yesterday's value area low. Then we moved into our first upside target. This is kind of weird, so I hope you guys are following along here. And this was initially our first upside target that ended up being a level that we hit to the downside, okay? So you could consider this, if you waited for the open, if you waited for us to come down and probe the lows, then these would have been upside targets. So it really depends when you started trading, how you started to look at these levels, at what time, etc. So these could have been indeed upside targets depending on if you got in down here. So keep that in mind. They're just major levels of interest that you will very, very likely get reaction to time and time again. I urge you guys, if you're new especially, to go into the Facebook group, backtest my trade plans. You can go back for months upon months and see the hit rate in these trade plans. And it's for good reason. This market information is plotted automatically for us, and it is right here for our taking to use it as an edge. So with that said, the third upside target that I was interested in was 13,697. You can see that was the point of control from yesterday, and we did indeed tap that in D period. So zooming in here, B period is the first 30 minutes. D period is the second half-hour block of the New York session. So we had to be a little bit patient, wait for the first half hour to develop, and then we ended up moving up through 13,697. The fourth upside target, 13,712. You can see 13,712 is the value area high from yesterday right here, and we had to be even more patient to wait for an extension in E period to touch that upside target. So that was the final upside target hit today on our very interesting, choppy, ranging day in the NQ futures market. And we will go ahead and move into the downside after I clear some of these drawings. So once again, yesterday's low, the line in the sand, and we did not get much downside pressure at all. We did, however, get a move to our first and only downside target at 13,644. Now we moved into 13,644. That was the initial balance low from the May 25th session. And very, very interestingly enough, that was today's low within one tick on NQ. So you guys will see that these profile levels getting hit are no coincidence. These are levels where there's resting liquidity, where there is a lot of orders, where larger players know they need to go down, absorb that liquidity to ultimately move price where they need it to go next to help the market remain efficient. So while today's price action in a lot of instances was like pulling teeth, there was still edge. There was still a lot of great reaction off of market profile levels. And if we go over to the regular chart here, I'll give you guys some examples. All right, so I'm going to make this quick. I just want to show you how well these levels will get reaction. So actually, let me do it this way. I'll pull up my 1,000 tick chart. I will get rid of some of my indicators here. Let's do it this way. And you can see how orderly these profiles get reaction. So if we zoom out and get rid of all these drawings from the session, all those arrows is basically me, explaining things live on stream, people asking questions, me explaining setups, things like that. So if you see a bunch of crazy drawings when I'm pulling up my candlestick chart, that is why right there. So here's just an example. These profile levels are very, very accurate. And if you can be patient and wait for price to come to these levels, show you things like bullish divergence, bearish divergence. You can see multiple opportunities here at and around these levels. Price very, very orderly moves through, comes back, retests, rejects, retests over and over again, sometimes to the tick, precisely to the tick. So I, again, would urge you guys to plot these profile levels on your chart. And if nothing else, watch price and how price reacts to these market profile levels. I promise you, you will find it very interesting. You will very likely find good edge in these market profile levels, and it will very likely help you succeed in finding consistency as a trader in the ES and the NQ futures markets especially. So with all that said, I really hope that this information is helping you guys along in your trading journey. I hope it is helping you kind of get a bigger picture of the market in general, how these futures markets work, and how to gain more of an edge in the NQ and ES futures markets. With that said, I want to thank you guys very much for taking the time to watch this content. If you do enjoy what you see, please feel free to like and subscribe down below. You can also check out the links in the description below, where you will find access to our free Facebook group, where I release these trade plans on a daily basis, Monday through Friday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. You can also find access to our website in the description below, thetradingnetwork.io, where you can learn more about one-on-one mentorship with me. You can learn more about joining our private Discord group, where you can watch me trade live Monday through Friday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. You can learn more about the Trading Network Proprietary Indicator Package, which you have briefly seen in this video. And last but not least, you can purchase access to the Fundamentals of Futures Trading course and the FFT course bundles. The FFT course, or the Fundamentals of Futures Trading, for those of you guys who are not aware, is a comprehensive course that discusses multiple strategies for varying market environments. So I teach you guys a ranging strategy, a trending strategy, and I also offer a bundle where you guys can get all of the indicators that I use as well, which includes extra content that specifically shows you guys how to use the indicators, how I use them in real time, and take trades with them. So if you guys like what you see and you want to learn more, please feel free to reach out to me on any of our social channels, email, Facebook, Instagram, any way you can find us. I will get to you ASAP and help any way I can. Thank you guys so much for being a part of the Trading Network, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.